Welcome back everyone to another tutorial. Today I want to show you how to make a health system for your game, having different hearts, different enemies, and also a way to, let's say, heal your character and restart the level in case you die. So I've set up this scene, which most of you might be familiar with, as I use it often in also other tutorials. And what I'm going to use is some hearts for my character's health, some spikes, which will be the enemies. In later tutorials, I might also make moving enemies. And I'm going to make a UI around your health system. So let's get started. Currently within the game, I only have the bananas and the banana counter. And what I want to add is, let's say, the head of the character and a couple of hearts. So let's go to the Playmaker GUI. If I double click, I can see it here. Yeah, within the GUI, I'm going to create an empty. There we go. And let's call this the health bar. And I'm just going to drag this to the upper left corner and also fix its transform in the upper left corner. And I just want this as a placeholder. And within this health bar, I'm gonna create a UI object, which is an image. And in the first image, I want to have the head of my character. And let's cross-check in the game if I like the size and I want to have it similar perhaps to the banana, or perhaps the banana should be bigger. So let's just leave it like this, and let's call this the player. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate it, hitting Control D, going to slide it a little bit to the right, and here I'm going to replace the head with a heart. And now this is a little bit too big for my liking, so let's make it a little bit smaller. That's too small, 0.5. Yeah, something like this. And let's align it and let's call this heart. So I have a heart, now I have it on the right size. Let me add right away a canvas group, which is one option we're going to use later to blend out the hearts once you lose a heart. And then I'm just going to duplicate the heart and make a nice row. And it's up to you, of course, how many hearts. It's just going to make the Playmaker finite state machine a little bit more complicated in the end, but I'm just going to make an example with 5 hearts. There we go. And I want to name the hearts to make it easier for me when I make the state machine and I don't get confused later. So heart 3, heart 4. Of course, if you want to have more hearts or also a health bar, will give you a little bit more flexibility perhaps. But today I just want to show you how to make a system with hearts. So within game, this looks quite good. Here are now 5 hearts, but currently these hearts, they don't do anything besides just being there. And the idea is, of course, that my player will have health and that I make a state machine on him, which control these hearts. And once the hearts are gone, I want to perhaps restart the level. So let's get right into that. I'm going to go on my player and I'm going to right click here to add an FSM, which I'm going to call the health FSM. And the first state will be the usual trigger state. As you might know, trigger 2D event, but I'm going to have 2 trigger 2D events because at one side I want to let's say, damage my character, and the other sides I want to heal it. So the first trigger, I'm gonna collide with an enemy, and I set up this tag. So please set up your tags for enemy or call it damage. And I have one which is called heal player. You can add the tag right here. So I'm gonna do one with enemy, and I'm gonna have one with heal player. And then I'm gonna make new events, and the first one is damage player. It's an event damage player. add transition damage player. And I'm gonna make a new event for heal player. Add a transition and heal player. So there we go. And this is the trigger state. So let me just try to slide this up a little bit so you can follow this along, which is the most important part. So I want to have two states now here. Let's say the heal player and one more state, it's damage player. And I want to connect them, of course, to the right side. And what I'm going to do is make a float in this case. What I'm going to do is add float add. So with the float add, I can add a figure to a given variable. And for damaging the player, I'm going to do -1. And the float or the variable will be a new variable, which we will just call health. And what we're going to do at the variables here, clicking the variables tab, we're going to set the standard value, which is going to be 5 here. Going back to the state, and we're just going to have -1 here, and then I want to finish. And now let me just copy this one over here, and here I'm just going to add 1 and add a transition, finished. And here I'm going to add a state. And in the next state, I'm going to see what the health status of the player is. So check health. And I'm going to do this by a float compare. There we go. And the float compare will look at the health variable. And I want to compare it with, for example, 5 hearts. And in case of equal, I'm going to make now different events which it can send. And this might look a little bit much, but trust me, it will be worth your while. So let's make the event of 5 hearts, 4 hearts, 3 hearts, 3 hearts, 2 hearts, 1 heart, and game over. So if it's equal then 5, it's going to be 5 hearts. And I'm just going to add these transitions here as well of 5 hearts, 4 hearts. Now you can already see it's going to be some work, this one. And a bar is actually easier, but I like this setup actually a lot. Game over. And now we will have to make, right, so the first is then 5 hearts. I'm also going to make then 5 separate compares. So the first compares to 5. This will be 4, and then send it to the 4 hearts. Then I'm going to make one with 3 to send it to 3 hearts. Then one with 2, I send it to 2 hearts. And the final one is 1, I send it to 1 heart. If it's less than 1, I want to send it to game over. There we go. And what I'm also going to do is, in case of 5 hearts, if it's greater than, I'm also going to send it to 5 hearts. And I will explain you later why and how. So let's make the different states. I'm just going to make them here to the left side. Let's drag this all a little bit down. And let's call this one the 5 heart state. And now the fun part will of course start, as I have to make a canvas situation for these 5 hearts. And what I'm going to do is set our alpha UI. There it is, UI canvas group set alpha. And I'm going to set the alpha to 1. And I'm going to specify a game object. And here are my heart. It's my health bar. And the 5th heart is the one to the right. So I'm just going to put that one on the top. And in case of 5 hearts, I want all hearts, of course, to be lit up. I'm just going to copy paste this. And here's now the 4 heart, the 3rd heart, the 2nd heart. I know it's a lot of work. And the 1st heart, do I have now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I want to set them all to 1. And what I also want to do is make a set FSM float. And I'm going to use the owner. And this is the health FSM and the variable health, and I'm going to set the value to 5. In case I have 5 hearts and I'm going to run over a heart or a healing pickup, I'm going to get a 1 added to my float, which will bring me on 6. And what I want to do, I don't want to have more than 6. So I just want to make the player not pick up the hearts and leave the 5 hearts on 5. Does that make any sense? I hope it makes sense. And then I'm going to add a transition which is called finished. And what I'm going to do here is add a state, is a wait state. So once I get damage, I don't want to get damage right away. And this is a simple wait action with 2 seconds and then finished. Just going to move this here. And then I'm going to move it back to the beginning. So we have the heal player, damage player, and then we're going to check the health of the player. And we've set up the 5 hearts. Just going to copy this down, copy the 5 hearts to one down here. I'm just going to call this 4 hearts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend the 5th heart to 0.2. And of course, at the beginning, at the bottom, I'm going to remove this FSM to set the float because I don't want it to change any float. I'm just going to connect it there to the wait. I'll copy paste it. And I'm going to make a 3 heart. And for the 3 heart, I'm going to blend out the 5th and the 4th heart. Just copy paste it again. Going to make a 2 hearts. And for this one, I will blend out the first 3. And then we're going to have the 1 heart. 1 heart. And for this, I'm going to blend out the first 4. Great. And then I'm going to, this is the question if I want to, I can of course make a 0 or game over. But for the game over, I can also blend out this heart then. And here you should then of course play your death animation, and currently I don't have this set up right here, but that's then the chance to do it, and I will show this in future videos. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a state. What I'm going to do is fade the screen red. Fade screen or fade camera. Fade camera out. And I'm just going to say to red. Just going to do it in like 0.5 seconds. And then finished. Add transition finished. add state. And here is, of course, up to you. I will restart level. You can also go to a scene, which is, for example, the game over screen, which is also fine. And to go to the game over scene, you should make a scene or go to scene, load scene. You have to then load the scene with the index of the game over screen. Right, I'm just going to restart. Right, now let me make sure that I connect the right hearts here, there, and then let me go up here. Right, so it's maybe now a little bit small. So let me zoom in a little bit and go over it once more. So I have two triggers, and depending on with what I collide, and this will either add 1 point to my health float, and you can always see that the float variable is 5. It will either add 1 or delete 1. Then I'm going to compare this health float, which you have to select here, with a number. This is the float 2. And then I have a tolerance of 0. And if it's equal, then I'm going to jump to the 5 heart event, and greater than, I'm going to go to the 5 heart event. And for the other ones, I will equal just to 4. And when it's equal, I will jump to the respective event. And if it's 1, if it's equal to 1, I will go to the, let's say, the 1 heart. And if it's less than 1, I will just jump to the game over. So this should be set up and this should be working. And the only thing which is now, of course, missing within the scene are then, of course, so I also have a kill floor here with a box collider. And what I can do is I can also just give this the enemy tag. So once I fall down, I will also lose a heart. Great. And what I will do now is add a enemy. And I think I have a building blocks here, and I have your health system. So what I'm going to do, and let me just scroll this down a little bit so we can see what's going on here. I made some spikes, not my most beautiful spikes ever, but it doesn't really matter. So let's put it here in front of the player. Let's make it a little bit smaller. It's a little bit too big. I won't have any chance to jump over it, actually. So let's make it some small spikes here. Just gonna put them there. So I want to add a box collider 2D here, and I'm gonna mark it as a trigger, and I'm gonna mark it as enemy. And now let's see if this now works, and if I actually get damage or not. So currently it's waiting. I triggered. It's waiting 2 seconds and back. And as you see, 1 heart now is transparent. Once again, I get damage and it goes back. 3 hearts down. And of course, I can now stay here, which is not very nice. But there you, of course, can add some particle effects or a bounce effect. I will look into this. And on the 3rd trigger, it will restart the game. Awesome. So the damage side is now done. And what I'm going to do now in addition is I'm just going to add a heart to my scene to get my life back. Wow, it's a huge heart. Let's make this definitely smaller. It's still too big. Something like that. I want it player. 0 is okay. I'm gonna of course add a box collider to this one as well. Where is it? Okay, it's right around it. Is a trigger, and this one will be new player. And what I want to do within this heart, I want to add a small FSM as well. because if I have 5 hearts, I don't want the player to pick up my heart. Does that make any sense? I hope that makes sense to you. So let me just do this. Trigger 2D event. On trigger, enter the player. Send event finished. Trigger. It's gonna finished. I'm gonna add a state here and check hearts. And what I want to do is get FSM floats. So, and I'm gonna use specify game object, which is the character, and the FSM name is the health. I should have called the FSM perhaps health system, and the variable health, and I'm just gonna store the variable here in a heart check variable. Store value, and what I'm gonna do is a compare. Again, the float compare. And I'm gonna compare now, whoops, the heart check. And I want to compare it with 5. And if it's equal to 5, I'm just gonna finish. And I'm gonna go back. So I'm not gonna do anything. But if it's less than 5, I'm gonna add a new event. It's destroy heart. And for this one, I'm just gonna say destroy self. And here, of course, I could also add a small particle system. So for example, what I could do is just go to effects, particle system, and it looks really nice. I'm not gonna make it loop, I'm just gonna make it the duration 1. I'm gonna make the start size 0.05. That's for everybody different, of course. And you can see there's something coming out. Start lifetime 1, split up with 10. I just want to make it quicker actually. That comes out. Emission, let's make 50. Color over lifetime, that's always a good one to have. Let's make here colors red. And perhaps let's make the transparency over lifetime there, something like this. Wow. And perhaps let's put collisions on, and let's collide with the world, collide with everything. Great. Well, it doesn't really work, the collision, but anyhow, let's move on. Where else? Sorting layer should be on the player. Yeah, and that's a nice particle system. What I'm going to do is make a prefab out of it. And it's just going to shoot once. I'm going to delete it here. And on the heart, what we had now here is also I'm going to create object and game object, particle system, spawn point is the heart. And then I'm going to destroy myself. So let's actually see if this works. So let's go once more over it really quickly. I'm gonna have the trigger when the player enters. I'm gonna check if I have 5 hearts or not by actually receiving the value of the health variable in my character. If it's 5 equal, I'm gonna finish. I'm just gonna wait for it to trigger again. If it's less than, I'm just gonna destroy the heart. Great. And let's make this perhaps. I should have perhaps set the heart at this side. Let's maximize on play. And once I jump over it, See, the heart won't disappear, nothing will happen. If I fall down, I lost the heart because my kill floor is also an enemy. Now if I walk over this, boom, I've got my heart back. And now I lost the heart again, and again, and again, and again, and I died. So of course you should also perhaps add some sounds here. I didn't prepare any sounds for today's tutorial, but you can make easy sound and use the play audio or play sound action within this FSM as well. I hope you liked the video. See you next time. Cheers! Oh, and make sure to subscribe.